Welcome back to Maple Leafs Man Advantage. I am Hawkeye. This is my 75th episode talking about the Toronto Maple Leafs generally through time, why they haven't won a Stanley Cup since 1967. And today I'm going to talk about the 1975-76 NHL season, how the Leafs did, what my own team might look like if I was the owner and GM. And we'll take a look at that. But I'll get this out of the way first. If you like my video, I'd appreciate it. You could hit like or the thumbs up. But you could also go ahead and subscribe. As I said, I've got other videos on here, generally dealing with Toronto Maple Leafs. And if you want to comment on anything, you can do so. That would be excellent as well. Um, Slowly getting to videos here. Sorry, guys. The Toronto Blue Jays are in the World Series. They play again tonight, game four. I'm going to get this in before I get to that game. Hopefully, kind of edit it and get this video online tonight of game four of the Jays in the World Series as well. Let's see what we can do. So, for the 1975-76 season, the Toronto Maple Leafs were coming off a playoff series in which they won. We saw them win a round in the playoffs that had not happened since 1967 and them winning a Stanley Cup. So it's been a while since they've seen really any success in the playoffs, and they brought some last year and at least winning one round. Now, you could definitely say this was Daryl Sittler's team now, as both Dave Keon and Norm Allman did not return to the Leafs. They both went to the WHA to continue their hockey careers. The old guys were gone, and Toronto was pushing through with some good young talent. So there you go. Now, things that were huge this season were number one, the Montreal Canadiens. They may have had, you can go with it during the next 7 year stretch. On a list of the best teams or the best dynasties of all time, you have to include this team on this list. This season they had 58 wins, 127 points when they played only 80 games, and there was no overtime. So if you tied after 60 minutes, that means you tied. You would get 1 point. No win, that's a tie. They were quite incredible this season. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, we have the Kansas City Scouts. They had only one game in their last 44 games. That is absolutely atrocious. Man, that is brutal. Also in this season, Daryl Sittler scored 10 points in one game. That happened on February the 7th, 1976. He netted 6 goals to go with 4 assists as the Leafs beat the very good Bruins, but they smoked them 11-4. Also that night, Daryl was in fact the last NHLer to score 6 goals in one game. He was the last guy to do that. That was Daryl Sittler. Gretzky never did that. Lemieux never did that. Ovechkin never did that. It was Daryl Sittler, the last guy to score 6 goals in one game. Excuse me. This season was also the last for the likes of Bob Nevin, former Leaf, and Mickey Redmond. This season, though, brought the debuts of some great players, excellent, such as Brian Trottier, also Mel Bridgman and Doug Jarvis. They were newcomers to the league as well. So for this season, the Leafs were back in the Adams division with the high-flying Boston Bruins and the high-flying Buffalo Sabres as well as the lowly California Golden Seals. I'll jump into this division and we can take a closer look at these teams, where Toronto ended up, and kind of who are the high flyers, I guess, of each team. So in first place was the Boston Bruins. They had a great record. They had 48 wins, 17 ties, and had 113 points. Great season. Coached by the colorful Don Cherry. Phil Esposito would actually be traded out of Boston this season. He would go to the New York Rangers. So it was Captain Johnny Busick. He led the club with 36 goals. Newly acquired Jean Rattel. He was involved in that Espo deal coming back from the Rangers. He led the club with 90 points. He had 31 goals himself and won the Lady Byng this season as well. In net, Gilles Gilbert was the main man. He played 55 games. He had 33 wins, 10 ties, 3 shutouts, and a nice 2.90 goals against average. The Bruins also had 35-year-old Jerry Cheevers. He had 8 wins, 5 ties, 1 shutout, an even 900 save percentage, and a 2.74 goals against average. Um, Finally, they had Dave Reese, just to mention as well, he was the goalie in the net the night Sittler scored those 10 points. Um, he had some good numbers though. Like he was playing on a great team, but he had some good numbers. He had 7 wins, 2 ties, 2 shutouts. So they had different options in their net in Boston as well. So next we have the Buffalo Sabres. They had a very strong squad. They had 46 wins, 13 ties, and 105 points. Coached by former Leaf Floyd Smith. Gare led the club. He had 50 goals this season. Gilbert Perreault, he had 44 goals and led the club with 69 assists and 113 points. Great job there. In that, they had Jerry Desjardins, who was the number one guy, as I said. He played 55 games, won 29 games, tied 11, had 2 shutouts, and a nice 2.95 goals against average. They also had a couple other 30-year-old goalies as options in Buffalo. They also had Al Smith, 2 wins and 2 ties, as well as Roger Crozier had 8 wins, 1 shutout, and a 2.61 goals against average. So they had 3 goalies in Buffalo as well. So it was the California Golden Seals who were squarely in last place. They had 27 wins, 11 ties, and 65 points, which is not good, but there were a heck of a lot worse teams in the NHL at this point. Um, Sad this season as there were no fights to get into the playoffs in any division. The guys out were way out. The guys in were way in. So I don't know what that was like for fans at the time. I'm sure it was still fun to watch hockey, to watch the guys you liked, the teams you liked, but there were no fights for the playoffs. So the end of the season may have been a little boring, if you will. There was nothing. You're just waiting for the playoffs to start, which in today's NHL is really strange. There's usually always a fight somewhere along the way for a playoff spot. For the Golden Seals, it was Al McAdam. He was their lone All-Star. He led the team with 32 goals and 63 points. But his 20-year-old rookie, Dennis Maruk, showed his skills. He grabbed 30 goals. 5 of them were shorthanded. In net was Jill Malash. He had 12 wins, 6 ties, 1 shutout, as well as Gary Simmons. He had 15 ties, 15 wins, sorry, 5 ties and 2 shutouts, giving a pretty even split between Malash and Simmons. And that was in California. Now that puts the Leafs up in third place with 34 wins, 15 ties, and 83 points. It was Errol Thompson who led the squad with 43 goals. Sittler led with 59 assists. He got an even 100 points to become the very first Leaf to score 100 points in a season. He repeated that in 1977-78. He got an even better amount. He had 117. And the only other Leafs to do this, 100 points in a season, were Doug Gilmour, Austin Matthews, and of last season, Mitch Marner. That is it. There's only 4 guys to ever do that. Gulp, that's not a whole lot. That's a very short list. As well, Ian Turnbull became the very first Toronto Maple Leafs defenseman to score 20 goals in a season. He did that this year as well. The only other defensemen to do that in Toronto history were Ali Afridi, who I loved as a kid. He was kind of my favorite defenseman as a kid. And current Leaf Morgan Riley, another gulp. That's even less. That's only 3 guys that have ever done that in Maple Leafs history. That's a even shorter list. Yes, as I said. And by the way, no defenseman has ever scored 80 points in a season as a Leaf either. Tiger Williams garnered 299 penalty minutes this season. Boreas Solomon was a plus 33. He was their number one guy back there, number one defenseman. In net for the Leafs, it was newly acquired Wayne Thomas, who led the way playing 64 games. He had 28 wins, 12 ties, and two shutouts. As well, they had Gord McCrae. He had 6 wins and two ties. So, here we go. Gonna take a look here at my own team now coming into this season. So, try and show this to you. Bring her in, bring her in, bring her in. And oh my gosh, what's this? Hopefully you can see that well. There we go. No, I don't have Dave Keon on my team. I'm literally going to do the unthinkable and let him walk to the WHA. Why? Because I'm getting Brian Chache in my lineup. So there we go. So he's new. Settlebauer, I think, is a rookie as well. Maybe Monahan too. So there you go on defense. 4 of the 6 were with the Leafs that year, but I have Russell and Height as well. And in that, well, I'm going to make that deal for Thomas as well because Bernie Frank gets hurt this year. And on with the W, that's the wins as well. And then we got extras on the bottom. Um, Bobby Bourne was actually in the minors for most of the year this year, so kind of helps because I like to keep him on my team. So he's going to go to the minors there, and um, that'll be my team for the upcoming season right there. Um, for 75, 76. And yeah, as I see, Perron would be my number one guy, but during the preseason games, he suffered a neck injury and it required surgery to repair. So he only did appear in 11 games this season. He did play in the playoffs, but he didn't play quite as well as he did in previous playoffs because he hasn't. Well, he didn't play near as much before getting there. Like he was, trying to come in and everybody's at a full sprint, if you will, or at the top of their game. So I would definitely get Wayne Thomas from the Canadians. So there you go, and then go with Thomas and Perrant in the playoffs, and Gordon McRae. He'll be there during the season, and he'll be my third man if anything happens, anything like that. Um, but I don't know. I don't think we'll get as far. We might get to the semifinals or something like that, but I think we're going to face the Flyers, and they're actually going to bounce me out of the playoffs. I feel that the Flyers were very good this season. They were looking to grab their third Stanley Cup in a row this season. So I think they played really well and be able to put me out. Now for my own team as well, I think I'm guessing here, but the team I got there, I think it'll actually be the number one scoring team in the league. Goals against, maybe 7. So it won't be quite as great in that respect, but I think I still will get the number one spot in the Adams. I think I'll be able to overtake the Bruins. Why? Well, Bobby only played 10 games this season. Um, and I don't know, they're still very strong in Boston. They're a great team still. Um, yeah, the Bruins goal differential is plus 76. Interestingly, the Sabres, who were below them, was plus 99. I think I would be better than perhaps both of them. I don't know. And maybe he'll grab that top spot. Overall, though, it was the Philadelphia Flyers. They were plus 139. Um, but they weren't the top spot. It was the Montreal Canadiens. Here we go. They were a plus 163. Oh dear. That is amazing. Also in the Adams Golden Seals, they were minus 28. Not too bad because they're playing with some tough guys in this division. So they were a better team maybe than they were given credit for, but they were not a playoff team, unfortunately. Worst in the league, I like to do this to look at the bad teams as well. There were some bad teams like the Minnesota North Stars who were minus 108. That's awful once you get into that league. The Kansas City Scouts were minus 161, almost polar opposite of the Montreal Canadiens. They only had 12 wins. Well, sorry, the team that was even worse had only 12 wins, and that was the Washington Capitals. No, sorry, the Scouts had 12 wins. The Capitals had 11. They were even worse. They were minus 170. They were worse in league. They gave up 4.93 goals a game. That's awful. But it's still a lot better than the previous season. So even though it's awful, they're making steps in the right direction here. Um, it must have been very tough for Caps fans at this time. The early years in Washington, well before Alex Ovechkin shows up and lights the twine on fire with all the goals he scored for Washington. But it must have been very tough those early years. Um, so yeah, it was the exact same playoff structure as last season. So the leaders of each division get a bye into the second round. The opening round is a best of three. Um, so yeah, I think looking at it, I think I would get a bye, eliminate someone, and then lose in the next round. Um, my guess is being the Philadelphia Flyers. They'll be flying away. So my team I'll be trading away just to let you know to Washington. They're awful, but I got to help them out here. So why don't I give them some good young talents? I'm going to give them Pat Hickey, Bruce Affleck, and Claire Alexander for their 1976 second, third, and fifth round picks. Kansas City, they're awful too. I'll give them a hand. How about I trade them um, Powell McIntosh, Pat Boutet, and California Golden Seals. I'll give them Bob Sirius. So yeah, give some of those really bad teams a little bit of a hand here. There's some good young talent. So there you go. That is the 1975-76 season. There you have it. And yeah, we'll take it from here and see where this leads us before we get to the playoffs. If there is anything in there in between the two. If not, my next video will talk about the playoffs and see how the Leafs did in the 1976 playoffs. But until next time, go Leafs go!